Hi, everyone. Excited to have as my guest Edward Brawer today. He's the co-founder and the CEO at PodcastAI. They have an amazing product related to automating all the manual work that you do when you're recording your podcasts. But before we talk about that, Edward, I'll let you share your story. How did you get here? And how did you start this company and any other companies that you started in the past?
Yeah, so Danny, pleasure to come on the show. So I've been doing software, websites, apps, since first website was in 1997. So I was pretty young back then, obviously, but working on software for a very long time. And my best friend since 1999, so that's over 20 years now, easily. Sean Duncombe, we started our first startup together in 2019. Learned a lot of lessons on doing that startup. But in 2023, when all the stuff started happening really with artificial intelligence, and I think ChatGPT was sort of a turning point, I think, on AI. That's pretty obvious to everybody. We realized we really needed to do something, and now was the moment to do something around podcasting, because AI is just such a great breakthrough actually for podcasting in terms of automating all the things that take a long time.
Great, man. It's hard to believe that in 1997 you already were making websites because I thought that you're around, like, I don't know, 25 or so. You look very young. So
I'm 38.
yeah, that's crazy, man. You definitely do your sports or whatever you do to look that young. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
man, that's really cool that you have, what is that, 27 years of experience in tech. That's
Yeah.
like crazy.
But the
um
thing was, when like companies like Google were being formed, I was just this like too young by this much to take part in any of it, right? The people that did that, they were already in university. I would have been in, high school. Um, so yeah, like with what's happening with AI now, it's really like it reminds me of that time 25, 30 years ago.
that's a very good point. I was talking with another guest yesterday. We were talking about GPT store and AI in general, and he also around 40 years old, and he said that this AI boom, what's happening, the trend, everything that we've seen since late 2022 with ChatGPT, it reminds him of even the internet, all those things that were happening in the 80s and the 90s, and that's something that I've also heard from him.
Yeah, it really is the moment to strike, because kind of like the internet was such an unlock. Everybody's now networked together. There's a lot to build. AI is very similar. There's a lot to build.
Yeah, definitely. So you said that you started coding your websites in 97. um, so what was the story? Did you start with a regular job or did you start your own business? And obviously you started with coding very, very young. So what was that like? How did you come to an entrepreneurship? What was the story there?
Yeah, so 97, I think it was, my parents put me in internet camp, I think. So, task number one was starting a website. So we were doing that in HTML3. CSS didn't exist back then. I was, Netscape Navigator and Internet Explorer. So very old stuff. And after that, if you were doing a website back then, the most impressive thing you could do in terms of programming, because doing a website's not programming, it's more like, it's not even scripting, it's like just a visual layout language. um, the most impressive thing you could do back then was have just a counter at the bottom of your website saying how many visitors you had. And people were using what was called CGI scripts, so that's written in Perl. And people are trading these CGI scripts and kind of figuring out how to write them. The next step for the internet, though, was using PHP to do server side generating pages. And again, it was just very early back then, so it was like, you know the same script that was generating the HTML of your page was talking to your database back then. Very, very rudimentary. But then I was also doing Mac OS apps for Mac OS 9 and then Mac OS 10, a bit of Windows as well, software. I went to University of Waterloo, which is known in Canada for computer science, but I went in for biology. So my undergrad is biology, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but it actually turned out I started working with my grandfather's cardiologist and doing software together and writing software like medical calculators and things like that. And I realized that I wasn't interested in medicine at all in terms of becoming a doctor, but more interested in the software and writing software. We did for over a decade consulting, writing guidelines apps for iOS, websites for national and international medical guidelines. And in 2009, I wrote a piece of software called UBar, which is essentially putting the Windows taskbar on the Mac. So sort of customizing the macOS dock, you could say. And that had a big update in 2014, and it's been running since, and a lot of people are using it actually. But it wasn't until 2019 when I had the opportunity to first work with Sean together on a company that I really first built an actual SaaS platform. And we realized, when ChatGPT came out, how important AI would be. So we pivoted really hard in terms of taking our foot completely off the accelerator on the other company, which was doing well, but it wasn't growing nearly close to as fast as PodcastAI is growing. It's just a completely different opportunity, and one that we realized immediately that we had to take advantage of.
Yeah, makes complete sense. So to recap, you're in basically your own agency for many years. Then in 19, Sean and you started your own company. What was the name? The Playeur? How do you
Yeah,
pronounce it? Playeur.
Playeur.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was the first company that was oriented on building the actual SaaS product, not just providing services, but actually building the product. And was that hard? Was that different from the experience that you had with the agency before? Or what was that transition look like at the time? Because you had like many different years of this kind of business. Now you're switching to a different business model.
Well, it's completely different. It was like the difference between just running a company where you have a few customers and you're building products for them, versus building out a software company that's providing services remotely to thousands of users, in our case hundreds of thousands, and it's just completely different. It was also our first sort of introduction to fundraising, raising money for the company, and kind of getting us interested in the startup environment in Silicon Valley and learning about that. What we did realize was, being in Canada, in Toronto, there really isn't much venture capital here, and really what we realized was where the ground game is essentially in California, in the Bay Area. And we realized, the importance of network effects, both at the level of the company itself, but also at the level of fundraising and being able to grow a company that way.
Do you think that the Bay Area is the only place where you can have that kind of environment? Or maybe there are some other cities in the US or maybe in other countries where you can experience the same in 2024? What do you think?
So it's not that there literally is no VC in Toronto. It's just that there may as well not be, right? So, if you kind of think of there's an 80-20 or a 90-10 rule, meaning a Pareto distribution, that's something that clearly exists. So, Canada might be right next to the US, but there's infinitely more capital and venture happening in the United States. Here, it's mostly private equity. Within the United States, there's plenty of cities that have venture capital. New York, Miami, a few other tech hubs. But again, if you look at the numbers, you have another 80-20 or 90-10, right? Silicon Valley or the Bay Area will be, as big as the next 10 competitors in terms of cities for venture capital. So yes, if you're in Miami or New York, even some other states, you could find a venture partner. But, being there and not being in the Bay Area is essentially playing the game on hard mode. It's better to be in an area where you have those network effects and where there's just such more density of venture capital and engineers and things like that. So, we're working on getting O1 visas to head to the Bay Area because we know that's where the ground game is being played. And actually, one of the big differences for PodcastAI versus our previous startup was just realizing the importance of that and actually setting up that ground game.
Do you think this idea of being around those investors, that network effect, it applies mostly to the companies that are actively raising some VC funds or angel investment, and not the companies that are bootstrapped? Or do you think there is a lot of value for any company just being around those people, having potential clients in every corner? So what's your opinion on that?
So it kind of depends. If you're bootstrapped because that's kind of your ideology, you never want to raise a penny of venture, then maybe you really don't need to be there. Although you're going to find the best talent there in terms of engineers. So it depends how much you're optimizing for that. Frankly, it's obviously not enough to just be there. You actually have to be good. You actually have to build an amazing product. But the difference is if you're building something great, being over there gives you an advantage in that you have just more opportunities to meet people, to meet VCs, and actually, you have more shots at bat. Let's say. That said, if you're building something and it becomes successful, you will get the interest from VCs. So there's a story, and this is I forget who from Sequoia Capital, but kind of gave this story, but it's a story about WhatsApp. So Sequoia is the company that did the first venture check, I believe, into WhatsApp, and the story was something along the lines of, and by the way, as background, Sequoia invests in maybe like 12, 20 companies a year, right? And they obviously look at way more companies. So they're very selective in what they back. They were just looking at the top apps in the App Store, and they noticed this thing called WhatsApp. And so they were wondering what this was. They did a bit of research into it. They couldn't really find anything about it. They eventually figured out, maybe from the incorporation docs or something, which city it was incorporated in. And a team from Sequoia just hopped on a plane to this city in the middle of the United States, and they started walking around the town looking for the WhatsApp guy. So the adage, don't go looking for Sequoia, they'll come looking for you, that might be true. And the moral of the story is, if you want to raise venture, be the WhatsApp guy, meaning you have to be successful and build something people want. So it's not the case that you have to move to California or Bay Area in order to raise. It's just overall, all other things being equal, you're better off being where the network effects are. But if your plan is just to bootstrap and you don't want to take VC, of course you don't need to be there. And if you're, there's a few ways to venture qualify yourself, right? You could be the ex head of, product at, name a FANG company. You could have had a past exit, on a very successful, well-known company. You could have gone through an accelerator like Launch, Y Combinator, Techstars, or be the WhatsApp guy.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. That's a very valuable perspective for the folks who are not sure. Do they need to get to the Bay Area? Can they build their company wherever they are now? But that's a very interesting point. One other thing that is very the thing that I'm very curious about is your company Playeur was also in this video creator space, as well as your current company, PodcastAI. So, how did you get into this video creator industry with that long background in more of a medical uh, sphere? So why did you decide, why Sean and you decided to go to this specific space to pursue building a product here?
Well, it's, you know, I'm interested in a lot of things, right? Like I built a car. Um, I learned how to CAD actually building that car. Uh, YouTube to me was always of great interest, and doing videos. I edit videos, and yeah, we just saw an opportunity. People were wanting something to sort of integrate the functionality that Patreon has with what YouTube has, and also people were sort of wondering out loud, why isn't there a second product, right? Why isn't there like, okay, maybe an Apple and a Google for this? And it turned out that on the video platform side, people weren't asking for a second video platform. They were asking, actually, without saying it, where's the second platform that's already as big as YouTube, right? So quickly you realize, okay, well, from a network effect perspective, you can't really build a competitor to that. That's not going to work. On the other hand, from Patreon perspective, there was an opportunity to sort of build in those video player type functionalities that Patreon was missing. So yeah, we got into doing that just because we're super interested in the space as both consumers and sometimes producers of content. But ultimately, back then, COVID was happening. And then the interest really was around Web3 and all the crypto stuff that was happening. So from the perspective of trying to build a startup that's going to really grow, sort of at a venture pace, it wasn't quite there. It was more like pushing uphill. Whereas with AI right now, it's just from the perspective of being able to build product that does things that no one's ever seen before. That's here now, which is amazing. And that's maybe one of the big differences with Web3 and crypto, which I think was a solution in search of a problem in many ways. Whereas AI is just this incredible unlock that actually is giving incredible productivity gains to the world. So yeah, it was a no-brainer for us to actually do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned that the company you guys are working on now, podcastai.com, it's seems to be more successful than Playeur. And you mentioned there are a couple of things that played into that. The ChatGPT AI boom, the Founder University launch accelerator, and a couple of other things. So in your perspective, in retrospect, and obviously you're working on this company right now, why do you think it's more successful, if you can call it that, than Playeur? And what's your take on how this situation with growing this company, seeing it giving more productive results than the last one?
Yes. So it again, it's a combination of a few things. So some of them, I've mentioned, which is it's important. So what you want to have when you're building product is having market pull instead of you're pushing. You're much better off if you have market pull. So right now, because of what AI allows you to do, there's tremendous demand for it. That's number one. So you want to build something that people are actually excited about at the time. So you could be building a company that, if you had built it 5 years earlier, and that's probably the case for Playeur. If we had built that 5 years earlier, it would have been very different, right? There probably would have been market pull at that time. So timing is very different. And, you can play this out for a lot of things. If you were to build something that's kind of like Google today, well, you would not have any success because all the network effects are with Google. And even if you build something marginally better, there's just not that interest in shifting to something different, for all those reasons. So there's a lot of things where market timing is super important. The second thing, and this is sort of a second-time founder lesson, is having a great product isn't good enough. You need distribution. So you need sort of to have some secrets or realizations that other people in the market aren't realizing that actually give you some sort of a very early distribution edge, which we have. Whereas before, what we were doing was, it was just outbound, kind of cold outbound. Whereas right now we actually do have contacts with YouTubers, obviously. So, and they're very interested in turning their YouTube channels into podcasts, and we're talking to people in business and marketing that realize that having a podcast is actually a great way to market your company or your services. And so we're just way better now at distribution. The product is much better than existing products. And there's more, there's more, let's say there's founder market fit, there's product market fit, there's, sales market fit. There's a lot of those things. And I think we're much closer to a 10 right now on all of those than last time.
Guys, congrats on that. Great job. So is it fair to say that a couple of, as you said, it's a combination of things, but mainly it's timing, which is very important. It is what I call unfair advantage. There is a business model canvas that um, like a popular framework on kind of trying to define your business. And there is a section called unfair advantage. And I think it's what you're talking about, the thing that you understand about the market, the connections you have, something that puts you in an advantage compared to other companies. And also it's, as you mentioned, founder market fit, because you understand it, you have some experience here. All of those things seem to be super important, especially combined, that help you build a successful company. So is it fair to say that this is a good summary for that?
Yeah, it's you want to do all the things that just increase, for lack of a better term, luck for you. So if in your case being in the Bay Area is going to increase your luck, then you want to do that. And that's kind of the philosophy you have to take for building your startup. Do the things that are going to increase your chances of success. And yeah, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah, that's a great quote, and I think it's a great mindset because, like, I've seen people who want to build something, who want to really make some impact, but just they they just don't believe that they can have it. They think it's either, oh, you get lucky or unlucky, but the truth is you can control your level of luck, because if you're proactive, if you reach out to people, if you try to surround yourself with right people, if you just do things that increase your chances, you have a better shot at it. And that is a very important thing to understand, especially for folks who are just starting, that you you may not control everything, but you have a control over some things that may increase your chances of success. So I think
Yeah,
it's a very good point.
yeah. What is the expression? It's like luck is preparation plus opportunity. So it's more like if you're, let's say, in the Bay Area, you have more shots at bat. That's more opportunity. And if you're prepared, that looks like luck. But really, you're the one who increased the chances of something happening. Um, so yeah, definitely you have to do that for in every aspect. If you're working on something that's, first of all, something that's on trend, people really want right now. So let's say being in the AI space versus strictly the creator space, or crypto, which was hot before. Um, that's something in your favor, right? You're more likely to have market pull than not in that case, and demand. If you're in the right area for your objectives, if what you want to do is to start a venture-backed company, or venture accelerated company, then you want to be in the Bay Area. There's, you're in Founder University, you're in cohort 7, I was in cohort 5. That was definitely a key to our early success, being in Founder U, which gave us the chance to actually get into the accelerator, the launch accelerator. Um, those are a product of the steps we took to be able to do that. Um, so yeah, you want to increase your chances of success, and that's really the job, right?
Yeah, I think it's a very good takeaway from today's conversation. And before we end it, um, is there any kind of advice you want to get to, say, first time founders or folks who are just starting with their startup, company, business, whatever? They're just trying to understand it, just trying to build something, have an impact. And you obviously have your pile of mistakes, probably, and failures, just like we all have. What would you say to that person?
I would say, you know, the thing I would recommend is what we both did, which is join. Founder University is maybe an on ramp to an accelerator. Um, so joining a community like that, or a program like that, I think that's super useful. Um, that's going to increase your opportunities, which increases your luck, let's say. So you want to be in that sort of an environment, and the beauty of it is you're in a cohort of other people like you that are building things, building a company, building products. So you just want to be in a space where you have those resources. And then yeah, like there's sort of a track for this, which is if you do well in one of those types of things, you can join an accelerator like the Launch Accelerator, like Y Combinator. Um, and that's one thing you can do to help yourself right now if you're starting a company. Um, and and yeah, like build something people want. That's the advice. And do what you can to you know do something where just all the odds are in your favor, and then it's really up to you to actually perform. Which ultimately, right, all of these things are necessary, are necessary, but not sufficient, right? You have to be doing the right product that people want. You have to be able to execute. You have to be able to recruit people to be co-founders and then employees, right? You have to be able to sell your product. Obviously, super helpful if you build something that's kind of a no-brainer for your customers when they see it. So yeah, just building a startup is it's something where you don't have to be the best at everything, but you have to be good at a lot of different things. It's very multidisciplinary. So um, find a co-founder that complements your skills. That's definitely one key thing. Uh, Being a solo founder is much harder, both from a motivation point of view, and also from a point of view of actually having those complementary skills. So yeah, if you have a co-founder that you don't want to have your co-founder someone you met like 5 minutes ago, but have somebody you trust and is complementary as a co-founder. Join one of these programs, like Founder U, and yeah, you'll start with much more chances of success.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's super helpful. Hopefully, that some of the founders are listening to this. They are getting this knowledge, which is super important. I do agree with all of the points that you mentioned. And yeah, it was nice to have you here. I'm very excited to have talked to you. Thanks for coming and sharing your story and your knowledge.
My pleasure, Danny.